When both you and the narcissistic person go silent, it does not end with peace. It begins with pressure. It begins with a strange, invisible collapse that most people never see coming. From the outside, it looks quiet, clean, final. But underneath that silence, two very different worlds start moving in opposite directions. On one side, someone is losing access, losing control, losing the ability to pull emotional strings whenever they want. On the other side, someone is finally stepping out of survival mode, even if they do not realize it yet. And that is why this moment matters so much, because mutual silence is not empty. It is charged. It is the moment the pattern gets exposed. It is the moment the old script starts to crack. If this feels close to your life, stay with me, because what happens next explains so much. It explains why the quiet feels heavy at first. It explains why they may return in strange ways. And it explains why your silence, even when it feels weak or shaky, may be the strongest thing you have done in a very long time. Keep listening, because the part that shocks most people is not that they react. It is how deeply your silence changes the whole emotional structure of the story. The first thing that happens on their side is not heartbreak, it is recalculation. They do not look at your silence and say, maybe I hurt this person, maybe I crossed a line, maybe something has to change. That is not where their mind goes. They study the silence, they scan it, they treat it like information. Your quiet becomes something to decode, not something to respect. They ask themselves questions that center them, not you. Did you get distracted? Are you trying to punish them? Did someone else take your attention? Are you testing them? Are you waiting for them to chase? They search for an angle because uncertainty disturbs them. Silence removes the script they know how to play. And when the script disappears, they do not become reflective. They become watchful. They may check your online activity. They may notice who comments, who likes, who stays close to you. They may not contact you at all in the beginning. And that is where people get confused. They think the quiet means the person has moved on. Many times it does not. Many times the quiet is a pause filled with ego math, pattern tracking, and silent observation. They are waiting to see if you will break first. They are counting on old conditioning. They are counting on your guilt, your empathy, your discomfort with conflict, your need to fix tension. And when you do not move, when you stay still longer than expected, something starts shifting inside them. For you, silence often arrives after emotional exhaustion. You are not playing a game. You are not setting a trap. You are trying to breathe. You are trying to gather the pieces of your mind after too much confusion, too much pressure, too many circular conversations that left you drained and doubting yourself. Your silence carries pain. It carries grief. It carries withdrawal, sadness, and sometimes even shame that you stayed as long as you did. You are not just missing a person. You are untangling from a whole emotional climate that trained your body to stay tense. That is why the quiet can feel so loud in the beginning. Your mind starts replaying things. Your chest feels heavy. Your sleep may still be broken. Part of you wants relief, and part of you still waits for the next emotional hit. But on their side, the experience is different. They do not sit in the silence the way you do. They do not feel the full human weight of the loss. They feel the interruption. They feel the inconvenience. They are used to having access to your energy, your replies, your concern, your apologies, your emotional labor, even your arguments. All of that confirmed their importance. When it stops, what they feel first is not deep sorrow, it is disruption. That difference matters. You are mourning. They are measuring access. You are trying to understand what happened to you. They are trying to understand why their usual method is no longer working. Stay with this, because that contrast reveals the truth of the entire dynamic. Silence becomes a challenge to their ego, because in their world, relationships are not built on equal emotional exchange. They are built on position, leverage, and influence. So when you stop responding, it does not feel neutral to them. It feels like resistance. It feels like a break in hierarchy. It feels like someone stepping out of the role they were assigned, and that is hard for them to tolerate. Arguments they can handle. In fact, arguments often help them, because your anger still keeps them at the center of your emotional world. Your tears can feed the same system. Even your frustration proves they still matter, still affect you, still pull emotional movement from you. But silence is different. Silence removes the stage. It cuts the wire. It denies them the easy proof that they still have reach. That is why silence can hit them harder than confrontation. Not because it is louder, but because it is emptier. And in that emptiness, they can no longer force a reflection of themselves from your reaction. Many will then create stories, to protect their ego. They may decide you are cruel, disrespectful, immature, manipulative, selfish, cold, or disloyal. They may say you are playing games because that story feels safer than the truth. The truth is more threatening. The truth is that you may be done feeding the pattern. The truth is that your nervous system may be stepping away from the chaos. And once that possibility enters the picture, their certainty starts to shake. This is where the internal vacuum begins. Their identity depends heavily on external reaction, and when your reaction disappears, something unstable starts moving inside them. Not always in a dramatic way at first. Sometimes it starts as restlessness. Sometimes it shows up as irritation, suspicion, or a subtle obsession with what you are doing and who you are doing it with. They may replay old conversations in their mind, not to understand you, but to find the moment where they think control slipped. They may wonder if you replace them. They may wonder who is influencing you. They may wonder why you are not behaving the way you usually do. And the more they cannot answer those questions, the more exposed they feel. They are suddenly outside of your emotional field, not in the center of it. They cannot read your mood. They cannot predict your next message. They cannot trigger your usual response and watch the pattern unfold. That lack of visibility unsettles them more than they admit. So even if they look calm from the outside, inside there may be a shift from arrogance to unease, from certainty to instability, from entitlement to quiet panic. This is the part people do not always understand. Your silence is not just absence. It is removal. It is the removal of an emotional mirror they depended on. And once that mirror is gone, they have to face a version of themselves without your constant reaction holding it up. That is why the silence grows louder for them with time, not softer. When that pressure builds, they often move into predictable tactics. The first is the pull back in. A soft message, a memory, a casual check-in that sounds harmless, but lands like a hook. Maybe they sound warm, maybe they sound fragile, maybe they act reflective in a way they never did before. Maybe they suddenly say the exact words you waited years to hear. This is why the silence phase can get confusing. Just when you start finding your footing, they may reappear with a tone that feels almost gentle, but you have to look at function, not performance. The point is not always repair, the point is often re-entry. If the soft pull does not work, the next move may be bait. Something sharp, something dismissive, something designed to light up your emotions and pull you into defending yourself. It can be a pointed message, a public post, an indirect remark, a detail they know will get under your skin. They do not always care if the response is loving. They care that there is a response because any response gives them proof of relevance. And if that still fails, they may bring in other people, a new partner, an old flame, a friend, a family member, someone who can help create pressure, jealousy, confusion, or comparison. None of this is random. It is about restoring position. It is about rebuilding the emotional system that silence started to break. Here is the part you cannot forget. These behaviors are not proof of love. They are signs of threatened control. Meanwhile, something very different is happening inside you, even if it feels messy and slow. Your body has been trained for tension. In a relationship like this, you become skilled at scanning tone, reading moods, predicting shifts, preparing for emotional weather that could change in seconds. You learn to brace before you even know you are bracing. You call it normal because you had to. You call it love because otherwise the truth would be too painful. So when the contact stops, your system does not instantly relax. That is important to understand. At first, quiet can feel dangerous. Peace can feel suspicious. The lack of drama can feel like the calm before another storm. You may feel restless. You may want to check your phone. You may feel the urge to explain yourself even when no one asked. You may miss them and still know they were hurting you. You may feel lonely and clearer at the same time. That is not failure. That is a nervous system trying to learn a new reality. This is where healing begins, not with sudden confidence, but with small moments, a deeper breath, one uninterrupted night of sleep, an hour where your mind is not spinning around them, a decision you make without fear of backlash. These are quiet victories, but they matter. They are proof that your system is slowly understanding something new. The danger is not here right now. The performance is over for this moment. And in that space, you begin to hear your own thoughts again. As the silence continues, you begin to notice the emotional fog thinning. It does not happen in one dramatic flash. It happens in layers. You start remembering things more clearly, not the fantasy, not the rare good moment that kept you hoping. The whole pattern, the way conversations twisted, the way accountability disappeared, the way your reality was bent until you questioned your own memory, your own needs, your own standards. You begin to see how much energy went into managing their moods, protecting their image, and minimizing your own pain so the relationship could keep functioning. That realization can sting. It can bring grief, anger, and embarrassment. But it also brings power, because clarity changes everything. The more clearly you see the pattern, the less magical it feels, the less personal it feels, the less likely you are to mistake manipulation for connection. And while you are gaining that clarity, they are often growing more unsettled. Because the longer you remain quiet, the more it suggests that something in you has changed. Maybe the old fear is loosening. Maybe the old guilt is not working the same way. Maybe the role they built for you is collapsing. This is why some of them escalate later, not sooner. They wait. They assume you will come back. Then when you do not, they start testing harder. Stay with this. This is where many people get pulled back in. Not because they are weak, but because the return attempt can happen right when they are tired, grieving, or starting to feel better, and that mix can be dangerous. One of the hardest truths to accept is that they may not miss you the way you missed them. They may miss the access. They may miss the function you served. They may miss the emotional fuel, the attention, the certainty that they could reach into your world and stir movement whenever they wanted. That truth hurts because you gave something real. You brought depth, loyalty, care, patience, and repeated chances. You showed up with a whole heart. So it is painful to realize that the bond did not mean the same thing on both sides. But naming that truth is part of freedom. It helps you stop waiting for a level of empathy that may never arrive. It helps you stop explaining yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you if misunderstanding keeps them in power. And most of all, it helps you stop translating their behavior through your own heart. That is where so many people get trapped. They assume the other person feels what they would feel. They assume silence must hurt them the same way it hurts a healthy, attached, reflective person. But the internal process is often different. Your silence may awaken sorrow in you, but in them it can awaken insult, frustration, suspicion, or competitive energy. They may want you back, but not in the way you hoped. They may want the arrangement back, the access back, the emotional control back. Once you understand that, the whole picture sharpens, and when the picture sharpens, the pull starts to weaken. There is another shift that happens in the quiet, and it is one of the most important. You start reclaiming emotional bandwidth. At first, you may only notice tiny changes. You laugh without forcing it. You finish a task without checking your phone every few minutes. You spend time with someone and realize you are present the whole time. You wake up and do not immediately think about damage control. That is not small. That is life returning. In dynamics built on control, so much of your energy goes into anticipation that you forget what open mental space feels like. You forget what it is like to think your own thoughts from start to finish without interruption from fear, confusion, or emotional aftershock. But silence gives that space back little by little. You begin making choices because they fit your values, not because they reduce someone else's volatility. You begin noticing what you like, what you believe, what you need, what you no longer want to excuse. And this is where your healing becomes threatening to the old dynamic, because once you reconnect with yourself, you become harder to pull with the same old tools. The guilt line does not hit the same. The blame does not stick the same way. The fake crisis does not create the same panic. You begin to see the pattern while it is happening, not only after the damage. That is a major change. And it is usually invisible from the outside. People may think nothing is happening because all they see is silence. But inside you, an entire internal structure is reorganizing. You are not just getting over a person. You are leaving a conditioning loop. That is why the next phase matters so much. If they return, and many do in some form, the real question is not what they say. It is what the contact is trying to restart. Listen carefully to the energy, not just the words. Does the message create pressure? Does it create confusion? Does it skip accountability and move straight to access? Does it trigger urgency, guilt, pity, nostalgia, or the old need to explain yourself? Does it ask for connection without showing real change? Does it sound polished but still leave your body tense? Your body often tells the truth before your mind catches up. If contact pulls you back into self-doubt, second-guessing, emotional chaos, or immediate over-responsibility, the old system may be trying to reboot. And this is why boundaries in silence are not only about staying quiet, they are about staying clear. They are about remembering what the pattern cost you, They are about not letting one moment of softness erase a long history of harm. Real change is slow, accountable, and consistent. It does not depend on your pain being forgotten. It does not demand instant trust. It does not rush past the damage. So if someone reappears with just enough charm to make you question everything, pause. Do not answer from the old wound. Do not answer from loneliness. Do not answer from the part of you that still wants the story to end differently. Give yourself time to hear your own truth. That pause may save you months, even years of repeating the same emotional cycle. And if they never return, that also tells you something. It tells you the connection may have depended more on your availability than on mutual care. It tells you your silence removed the path they used most. And while that can feel painful, it can also be clarifying in a way nothing else is. Because one of the deepest injuries in these dynamics is confusion. The mind keeps searching for a clean explanation, a final confession, one honest conversation that makes the whole thing make sense. But healing does not always come from getting that conversation. Sometimes healing comes from seeing the pattern clearly enough that you no longer need their version of events to validate your experience. That is a huge turning point. It is where you stop asking, why did they do this, and start asking, why did I stay in something that kept erasing me? Not from self-blame, but from self-respect, because that question opens the door to deeper repair. It helps you see the places where fear, hope, trauma, loneliness, or old wounds made this dynamic feel familiar. And once you see that, you can begin changing the deeper template, not just the surface behavior. This is what makes the silence so powerful. It does not just create distance from them, it creates access to you, to your patterns, to your needs, to your neglected instincts, to the voice inside you that kept whispering, "This is hurting me," long before your mind was ready to say it out loud. So if you are in that silent space right now and part of you feels shaky, lost, or tempted to break it just to end the discomfort, hear this clearly. Discomfort does not mean you are going the wrong way. Sometimes discomfort is what healing feels like when your body is leaving survival mode. Sometimes the quiet feels unbearable because it is the first honest thing you have felt in a long time. Stay with it a little longer. Let the silence show you who chases power and who chooses peace. Let it reveal what was built on mutual care and what was built on emotional dependence. Let it teach your nervous system that calm is not a trap. You do not need to rush back to what harmed you just because the unknown feels strange. The strange thing may be the doorway to your real life. Bit by bit, your thoughts clear. Your body softens, your self-respect returns, your need to explain starts fading, your inner world stops orbiting around someone else's instability. And that is the true shock in all of this. Not that they may spiral when the contact ends, but that you may begin to come back to life, quietly, gradually, powerfully. What unravels them can restore you. What feels like an ending can become your first real beginning. And if this landed deeply, hold on to the truth underneath it. Silence is not always emptiness. Sometimes it is rescue. Sometimes it is revelation. Sometimes it is the first sound of freedom.